Founding members of the EUDemocrats, and just to explain to you, it's an alliance of parties and movements that think that EU needs a democratic reform. And we do that from different angles and from various national political platforms, but basically we agree about that there needs to be made reform of EU. I am also the president of the EUDem group, as elected as an MEP from the June movement in Denmark. And I will just give you a short welcome speech, and I will have to leave you as I have meetings afterwards, but I wanted to welcome you myself before giving the floor to whoever will chair the meeting. Yes. This discussion is about privatization in the East European countries, and I think I just want to spend 5 minutes of your time telling you about privatization in Denmark, because as you know, Denmark is one of the Scandinavian countries where we've always had all public services paid by taxpayers' money. So I think 15 years ago we've very much seen the development that you're to discuss today, and there are definitely signals of warning to be given. Privatization in Denmark really took a move in the middle of the 90s, and there were two reasons. One of the reasons was an internal pressure from the liberal forces wanting to create competition in the public sector, and some politicians had the idea that it would give lower prices in the public sector, and that it would give better service. And as I just said, in Denmark, everything was paid public by and free to all citizens. Healthcare, primary schools, secondary schools, university, social welfare was free to all citizens and paid via taxes. And we have in Denmark one of the highest levels of taxes in Europe. It differs from 45% to 65%, increasing after what your income is. If you have a high income, you pay 65% of your income in taxes of the last earned crown, and if you have a low income, it would be around 45%. The other reason for privatizing was a wish from the EU to make the economies more compatible. Today, I would say that the privatizing that we made during the 90s gives us very many problems in protecting our social welfare system against the internal market. And I'll just give you one example to show you what it actually means. Because we made some privatization, before the 90s it was actually illegal to have private hospitals in Denmark. It was simply not allowed. There were only public hospitals. But after it was allowed, there came various claims. Well, if I had this disease and I have to wait to get a treatment in a public hospital, it would be nice if the state could pay for my treatment at a private hospital that has a capacity for making this heart surgery or whatever it would be. And today what we see is a very hard pressure from the EU, because there is this idea that everything should work as an internal market. And of course the four freedoms and the movement of goods, capital, trade, services, and employees. And for example, what we are dealing with right now, what I am working with in the IMCO committee, is the directive of the patients that has the idea that healthcare should be something that can be traded all over borders. And for my perception, I need to keep the Danish healthcare, public healthcare, as tax-paid and not as subject to privatization more than it has already been. But that is going to be very, very difficult. And what will happen if the Patients Directive, as it is written now in this form, and of course that is what I'm fighting to make it change, would be that if you have money, you're allowed to travel around Europe and shop healthcare. I can go to Poland, I can go to Germany, I can go to Hungary and buy a treatment for my cancer. And of course, if we get serious ill, we want to get the best treatment quickest. But the problem is that this is only going to help the richest citizens, because as the directive is set out, You need to be able to pay for your treatment, and then you can have it reimbursed in your national states. So this is going to create, it's not going to create an equal market for patients in Europe. It's going to create A and B citizens. And I'm very much afraid that we're going to see a development that is turning healthcare sector into what we see in the States. If you're rich, if you have good insurances, you will have good treatment. But if you're out of the working age, if you don't have good pensions, if you don't have good healthcare insurances, you will be lost and treated very poorly at public hospitals. So this is an example where the beginning of the privatization that we saw in Denmark in the 90s makes it very difficult for me to say we have a national system that I want to protect and I want to keep. So I think it is a very interesting issue you're debating today, and it definitely needs to be, for you as a working group, as a seminar discussing it today, but it definitely needs to be lifted up and actually put into the discussion and the policy making on all EU level. So I really welcome your effort, and I hope that you will succeed in making an impact. Thank you very much, and have a very nice day.
Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation, very interesting introduction. I should like to greet everybody who came and who thought that it is important to discuss this kind of